Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the sources you've shared, your articles, research, notes, and really unpack them together to get to the heart of what's important.
And today, we're diving into something, well, incredibly fundamental. It impacts your health every single day, your gut.
It really does.
It's a topic getting a lot of attention lately, and this material you shared gives us a really unique perspective, specifically, through an Indian lens.
Exactly. It connects these ancient traditions with cutting-edge modern science, offering a very rich picture, doesn't it?
It really does.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to understand what your gut is, fundamentally, why it matters so much, and how traditional Indian diets and lifestyles specifically influence it, according to these sources.
And crucially, what practical steps the research suggests you can actually take.
Right. So let's unpack this. Where should we start? Maybe right at the beginning. What exactly is the gut in this context?
Good question. Because it's definitely more than just, the tube food passes through.
Oh, absolutely. This material makes it really clear that your gut is actually home to this universe of tiny life. We're talking trillions of microorganisms.
The number is just staggering, 100 trillion, according to the sources, living inside you.
100 trillion. It's almost impossible to imagine.
It really is a vast ecosystem. And as this research highlights, they aren't just passive residents sort of hanging out.
No.
They play absolutely crucial roles. It goes way beyond just helping digest your food.
Right. The sources mentioned they're deeply involved in your immune system.
It's deeply involved.
Yeah.
And fascinatingly, they can even impact your mental health. That gut-brain connection is huge.
And that's where, looking at this material, the connection to Indian diets becomes immediately interesting.
Yes.
It points out how certain elements, things really common in traditional diets, potentially interact with this complex internal world.
Like what specifically?
Well, things like fiber-rich pulses dolls.
Yeah.
They basically provide food for these microbes.
You for the good guys.
Exactly. And spices like turmeric, which the sources note for its anti-inflammatory properties.
Yeah.
That could influence the whole gut environment.
Makes sense. Inflammation is a key factor in gut health.
And even ghee. Your notes specifically describe ghee as having prebiotic qualities.
That's a really key point there, prebiotic. So just to clarify for everyone, a prebiotic isn't the bacteria itself, like a probiotic supplement might be.
Right.
It's more like the fertilizer. It's fiber or compounds that feed the beneficial bacteria already living in your gut, helping them thrive.
So it's about nurturing what you've got.
Precisely. Nurturing the existing community.
It's fascinating how these traditional practices seem to line up so well with this modern understanding.
It really is.
And looking deeper into the historical context here, the research notes that ancient Ayurveda viewed the gut, they called it Agni.
Agni, yes. Often understood as the digestive fire or your metabolic power.
And Ayurveda saw this Agni as absolutely central to overall health. A strong Agni meant good health, basically.
Right. Absolutely fundamental. So this focus on the gut, it isn't some new wellness trend at all.
Not at all.
It has roots going back centuries in this tradition. And this material, it specifically highlights the benefits of traditional Indian fermented foods.
Ah, okay. So things integral to supporting this Agni and gut health.
Exactly. We're talking about common items like Dahi, which is yogurt or curd.
A staple for many.
Definitely. And Kanji, which is a fermented drink often made with carrots. The batters for dosa and idli.
Oh yeah, the fermentation there is key.
It is. And even traditionally prepared pickles. These are all specifically highlighted as beneficial.
Why fermented foods, though? What's the magic there, according to the sources?
Well, the fermentation process itself is key. It can do a couple of things. It might introduce beneficial microbial strains directly.
Like probiotics?
Sort of, yes. Or it creates compounds and an environment in the food that encourages the growth of your own healthy gut community when you eat it.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, this brings up an interesting point you mentioned was raised in the research, specifically about Dahi, or curd.
Mm-hmm.
Is it truly a probiotic in that very specific modern sense, like the supplements you buy with named strains?
Right. That's a good question, and the research acknowledges it's a common point of discussion.
So what's the verdict from these sources?
Well, It seems the material consistently lists traditional fermented foods like dahi as beneficial for gut health within the context of the overall diet.
Okay.
But it suggests the term probiotic, in that strict scientific definition, usually means specific, defined, live strains with proven health benefits at certain doses.
Which homestead dahi might not consistently have.
Exactly. Traditional dahi, especially if you make it at home, it can contain a wonderful variety of beneficial bacteria, absolutely. But the specific strains and their amounts can vary a lot from batch to batch, house to house. So the material positions it more as a valuable traditional food that supports gut health, rather than something fitting the precise definition of, say, a pharmaceutical probiotic.
So it's beneficial food, part of a healthy pattern, but maybe not a standardized medicine.
That seems to be the nuance, yes. It plays a role within the dietary tradition.
Got it. But, if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the research also gives this really important counterpoint.
Which is?
The risks posed by the modern lifestyle, how it's increasingly impacting these traditional diets and consequently gut health.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge theme. The material details some significant factors,
Right.
like the massive increase in consumption of processed foods, fast food.
Which often lack that crucial fiber.
Precisely. And then there's the widespread, sometimes indiscriminate use of antibiotics.
Which are lifesavers, obviously.
But they can absolutely decimate your gut bacteria, the good along with the bad, a bit like carpet bombing the ecosystem.
Wow, yeah, that's a strong image.
And the other big one mentioned is chronic stress, just the pervasive pressure of modern life. All these are highlighted as forces disrupting that delicate gut balance.
And this disruption, as the sources clearly point out, seems linked to the rise in common gut issues, particularly in the Indian context.
Yes, they mention problems like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome.
Which is so common now.
Very common. Also chronic constipation and acidity or heartburn.
And the research connects these pretty directly to those lifestyle and diet shifts we were just talking about.
It links them quite strongly, yes, that interplay. It also elaborates on some specific challenges, like the overuse of antibiotics we mentioned, noting that this can be particularly tricky in cultures where perhaps self-medication might be more common or access to precise diagnostics is limited.
That's a critical point. It's not just diet, but medical culture and access, too.
Right, and the research also brings in environmental factors, things like pollution, contaminated water sources.
Oh, wow. Didn't think about that angle as much.
Yeah, they're highlighted as significant contributors to gut infections. And this is mentioned as a particularly worrisome issue for children.
That makes sense. Their systems are still developing.
Exactly. So it's this really complex interplay, isn't it? You've got diet, ancient tradition, the pressures of modern life, environmental factors, all converging on your gut health.
It is complex.
That's
so
true.
Given this picture, what does the material you shared suggest you can actually do? It doesn't just list problems, right? It offers practical tips.
That's right. Thankfully, yes. It summarizes several concrete steps really grounded in the principles we've been discussing.
Like what? What are the key takeaways?
Okay, so one key suggestion is simply incorporating more seasonal fruits and especially fiber-rich pulses into your diet.
Back to basics.
Very much so.
Well.
Simple, traditional ingredients that feed those good bacteria. It even gives examples like sabut moong, whole green gram, and masoor dal, the red lentils.
Easy enough to add.
Uh-huh.
And it reinforces including those traditional fermented foods too, I assume.
Yes, absolutely. Making things like dahi or fermented batters a regular part of your meals for that beneficial microbial support.
Okay. What else?
A really crucial point mentioned is avoiding unnecessary antibiotic use. Being mindful, questioning if they're truly needed, always taking the full course if prescribed by a doctor.
Responsible usage.
Exactly. Hydration is also strongly highlighted.
Just drinking water.
Well, yes, but specifically recommending boiled or filtered water. This is particularly emphasized during monsoon season, apparently, when water quality can be more of a concern.
Good practical advice.
And finally, the research brings in a vital behavioral piece, practicing mindful eating.
Ah, okay. What did that involve, according to the sources?
Simple things, really, like avoiding screen time or other distractions while you're eating.
Putting the phone away.
Putting the phone away, and simply taking the time to chew your food properly. These aren't revolutionary ideas, maybe, but they're presented as really foundational for good digestion and overall gut health.
They seem like such tangible steps, though, rooted in both that traditional wisdom and the modern understanding we've been talking about.
They really are, and I think if we zoom out again, the core message running through all these sources you shared is that the path to good health, It often truly begins in the gut.
It seems increasingly clear.
And maybe, as the research subtly suggests, looking back at some of these traditional practices might indeed offer valuable insights, maybe even some of the answers we're searching for in our modern health challenges.
It's a powerful idea, isn't it? That this generational wisdom might hold keys that science is now validating.
It really resonates.
So drawing some inspiration from this deep dive today, maybe a small, tangible step you, the listener, could consider.
Yeah, what could that be?
Perhaps adding some of that homemade dahi to your lunch tomorrow. Or maybe even simpler.
Yeah.
Just consciously putting away your phone and really focusing on chewing your food at your very next meal.
Small steps, big impact potentially. This deep dive was a fascinating look at the sources you shared on gut health, exploring that intersection of modern understanding and Indian tradition.
It really was. And maybe to leave you with one final thought to consider, something that's hinted at for further exploration in this material.
Go on.
What's truly fascinating, and maybe a bit mind-blowing, is how deeply your gut health might be connected, not just to your physical well-being, digestion, immunity,
Right.
but potentially even to your mental state, your mood, your cognition. This gut-brain axis, it's an area the research touches on, suggesting this profound, intricate link between your belly and your brain is something we're really only just beginning to fully appreciate. Food for thought, perhaps?